Conversations with Chava Periban.
Ooh la la, señor francés. No, this is Heritage Mezcal, a new podcast that I'm doing about all things agave, deep Mexico, actually. I need to find a slogan. Maybe at the end of this episode, we come up with a slogan that I can use for future episodes.
My brain is working already.
Okay, great. So, will you care to introduce yourself, señor?
Of course I would. My name is Darian Martyniuk. I'm from Chicago in the United States. I'm here in Mexico City right now with Chava. I have a couple of business interests, but we're here primarily because of my interest in heritage agave spirits.
Oh, baseball? No.
Well,
we're talking about
baseball too. Okay.
We'll talk about your interest in mezcal later.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about baseball, my other great passion.
Yeah, so, I mean, first of all, I brought you into this studio with lies and promises.
This is true. I had no idea until this started happening that this was actually happening.
Yeah, and first of all, unlike what we used to do in the agave road trip, we're going to be drinking some stuff. So I'm going to go with a little bit of pulque, courtesy of our host, Roy.
Sounds good.
Yes, baby. This is, actually, it's old, but it's pretty.
I was surprised.
Right?
Because he said it's a couple days old. It's like, it's pretty good. It doesn't have that usual bitter pulque.
I mean, it has a strong acidity, but
yes.
Hey, like, life can be perfect. And you're drinking a pulquero, I believe.
A pulquero, yes. I don't remember exactly where it's from, but it is.
Oh, you're getting fancy stuff, my friend. You get Victor Ramos pulquero.
Gracias.
Look at you. Miahuatlán beauty.
Cheers.
Cheers, man. Oh, yes. Breakfast. So, and I really like it. It almost sounds silly that I want to talk about baseball with you, but when I first met you, I remember thinking that was fascinating because when I moved to Oaxaca, like in Mexico, it's a football country.
Right.
We love our football, and some places in some communities basketball. They play. They don't really watch it. It's more about playing it. Right. But Oaxaca is intensively in love with baseball. And I don't get it.
So, my background as a baseball fan, I grew up in Chicago. I was a Chicago Cubs fan growing up. Currently, I live in the city of Chicago, fairly close to Wrigley Field, the stadium where they play. In the course of my travel business, I established a product where I was organizing tours every year. We would go to different Latin American countries, usually Nicaragua, Panama, Dominican Republic, to watch Winter League baseball. Because as you know, in Chicago, once November comes around...
I don't know. Okay, so I have to also say this.
Okay.
I've only watched one baseball game in my life in Toronto with the Blue Jays when I was 15. And that's about it. I painted all myself blue. We're a bunch of Mexicans. We're all painted in full blue. And people looked at us really weirdly.
All right. We're going to try and fix that at some point soon. So I had a product where we would go visit winter baseball every year. Now, one of the things I found to answer the question you're saying, why is it popular in Oaxaca, is that in my experience throughout Latin America, to use the phrase, it tends to be a very regional local sport. It doesn't necessarily capture other than a country like Nicaragua, which is a very small country, and the top three sports in Nicaragua are baseball, and baseball.
Okay,
that's all they watch.
Didn't know.
Panama, it's more regional. Place like Colombia, around Barranquilla and the Caribbean coast, baseball crazy. You go to Medellin and Bogota, they don't even know what baseball is.
Yeah, I don't care about it.
They don't care about it at all. And I found it's particularly in northern Mexico, but also in some of the other big cities, in Oaxaca, in Yucatan.
Yucatan?
Yeah.
Baseball fans?
Yep, they have a team in Cancun and in Mérida.
With that heat?
Yep.
Okay, just extremely surprising. Yep. Do you have a theory? Okay, I want your theory of why that happened.
Okay, the commonly accepted knowledge, or commonly assumed knowledge, is that baseball has followed Americans. Wherever our Marines or troops went, that's where baseball went. Japan.
Okay.
Dominican. Cuba. Puerto Rico. Colombia, Nicaragua, Panama. We Americans brought baseball to all these countries.
I mean, I can understand that. Yeah.
I don't know if we ever had American occupation in Oaxaca though.
Well, that was exactly where I was going to.
Right.
And if there's a place that hasn't, I mean, until recently, like it was not.
I think I didn't play football or soccer growing up, but as an adult, I've followed sport generally internationally. And one of the things I've learned about is the difference in styles depending on where you are in the world. Northern Europeans tend to have a faster style, faster paced game where the ball's moving around a lot more and they're moving.
Yeah.
Whereas generally speaking, Mexico, Brazil, South American countries have a slower paced game, more unsetting.
You've never seen the Brazilian soccer then?
Well, okay. Again, this is my generalization as a not hyper knowledgeable fan.
Yeah.
And I think that part of it is that the pace of play of the game is easy to absorb in a warmer climate.
You know what's my theory?
What's your theory?
They just love to party. They just want a party that is gonna. I mean, that's why a Oaxacan wedding is 3 days long,
right?
And a baptism is 2 days long. They were like, okay, it's only 90 minutes for a football match. Nah, we're not gonna have like, you know, they want to be drunk and then hangover at the same time.
Yeah.
And, like,
and then
they want to eat.
Yeah.
They want to.
Yeah.
I think that was it. I think it's just like baseball was very attuned to the way they partied. And then it's a party that happens consistently, I don't know, if every week, every 2 weeks. And
Right. The baseball season goes every day. It's not a physically demanding sport in that you're not running around. You don't have to be in tip-top physical condition. So they play it every day.
I remember, I mean, and this is, in my mind, this is from all the things you were telling me about baseball, I remember I can't put my finger in it, but if it was either Nicaragua or Guatemala, that you were telling me that the food scene outside of the baseball was just insanity.
So in Nicaragua, they have several of the larger cities, Managua, Masaya, Granada, Leon, Chinandega, and Rivas. They have very small baseball stadiums that were built, I'm going to guess, somewhere between the 20s and the 40s. So a long time ago. These are old buildings. Not a lot of infrastructure. It's kind of some seating, maybe a little press box they put in somewhere in the 60s or 70s. Maybe some other seats in the outfield. There's no room for concessions in any of these stadiums, these older stadiums. So what happens is you go to the game, you buy your ticket, you give it to somebody when you walk in, and then when you walk out, you've got to make sure you have your ticket because there's no room for the concessions and the kitchens and the cooking inside. So you walk outside of the stadium, and all of the locals bring their grills and cook outside.
That is, I mean, I need that. I need that in my life.
And
Was it delicious? Yes.
It's all awesome home cooking.
Oh.
So you can get chicken, different cuts of meat grilled and stuff. And they have, in Nicaragua, they have one super unique dish that I've never seen anywhere else. It's called vigorón.
Okay, sounds good.
It is named after a hair tonic called vigorón.
Oh yeah, like vigorous.
Yes, but it was an actual brand name of a hair tonic. So I'm going to guess mid-20th century in Nicaragua. And the story that's told is that some guy in Nicaragua had a bunch of yucca and didn't know what to do with it. So he went to the baseball stadium one day, cooked up the yucca, got some pork rinds, and then got some very vinegary, like cabbage salad, like a coleslaw, like a super vinegary but chunky, not very finely chopped coleslaw. Put it all together and said, "This is vigorón. This is the snack for baseball games."
And it stuck.
It stuck. And everywhere, all these baseball stadiums, it's the one snack they have everywhere.
Man. Okay, so why are we talking about baseball? Because this is a I mean, basically a podcast. I mean, because of these things. Because I think like what happens in these kind of spaces, they're taking a culture that is not theirs, right? Like an imported sport, and they are merging with it. They're messing with it. They are
right. I think you see that in Japan. I've never seen baseball games in Japan, but they have their own unique take on the game. Same in a place like Korea, where they have very let's say aggressively passionate fans with cheers and songs, and they all get, the face paint, they all get dressed up, they already get into it. You find a lot of that in Latin America as well. You find it much more than in the United States, where generally fandom is very staid and very,
that's when I'm telling you about this Blue Jays game that we went to. I mean, we're all Mexican kids, 15-year-olds that have gone to football games. And for us, what you're describing as, I think the word you used was aggressive enthusiasm.
Aggressive enthusiasm, yes.
It was, for us, it was like, the norm.
What was fascinating to me about it originally was, number one, it's the game I like to watch. It's a sport I played briefly as a child and not well at all. But it's a game that I love to watch. It lends itself to analysis, if not over-analysis.
Oh, Lord.
There's a great pace, and you can kind of always keep thinking about it and concoct different strategies. But what I really liked about baseball was that it was a way, specifically in Nicaragua, but as well as other places, is it shows what people do with their free time, how they relax. In baseball, they call baseball America's pastime. How we pass the time when we have time to relax and we're with our families or our kids, or we just want to chill and be entertained. And I see the same thing specifically. What really first drew me in is Nicaragua, but the same thing everywhere. This week in Mexico, I've seen a few baseball games up north. And it's, you go in, it's at night, everybody's done with the day, everybody sits down, you have a glass of beer, you have a little bit of food, you interact with your friends, you're relaxing. And I love knowing how people work is fascinating. But how people relax and what they do afterward and their life outside of that is really interesting to me.
Did you bring mezcal to your baseball match?
I did not.
That's interesting too, because they don't serve spirits usually.
No, they serve. For example, this week I was in Torreon and in Durango. Delicious Mexican beer. Is it the cheladas or what with the
micheladas?
With the
salt rim,
tahini salt, and then other fruits and vegetables in there.
That's marvelous.
Yeah, it's fun. It's refreshing. The food, oddly, at these stadiums in Mexico that I've seen is pretty much what you'd expect. Some Mexican food. They had pizzas. They had Domino's Pizza.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a good business for Domino's. So yeah. Why not?
But it's a great environment. Everybody's drinking and partying and just there to have fun. And again, aggressively cheering their teams on.
Man, I love this. And again, for me, this is almost a side or a face of Mexico that I was not aware of until I moved to Oaxaca. And it's a never stopping marvel, I think, for me, in the same way. And again, just to bring it into the mezcal realm, which I guess we need to, I guess.
Of course.
I was discussing this with you right before we started recording. For me, I think a lot of the substrate that makes mezcal possible, it's all of this deep Mexicanness that sometimes happens in relation with an American sport. And you wouldn't think that will be a happy combo, but it's just amazing, right? And
it definitely is. And it is... Yes, it's a foreign game from a foreign culture brought here, but it's, as I said, with this aggressive enthusiasm, it's done uniquely. It's done uniquely here. It's got it's clearly its own take on it, and I can say very broadly, it is a Mexican passionate take. You see that in other Latin American countries as well, as opposed to Americans. We're always very reserved, and you have to play the game the right way. You can't complain. You can't celebrate too much. When you hit a big home run, oh yeah. If you celebrate, you can watch these games in Dominican Republic or in Mexico. The guy hits a home run. He throws the bat up. He's jumping around. He's running around the bases.
As he should.
Because you just did an amazing thing. In the United States, you can't do that. You put the bat down. You run around. You keep your head down. You high five your teammate when you're done, and then you go in the dugout, and the game goes on.
You guys are sick.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, I mean, for me, honestly, I love having this conversation because it just makes me understand my country in a way that I just didn't have any idea about. And I have to go to a baseball match now.
Absolutely. We got a team in Mexico City here. There's teams all over.
So if this episode airs when I think it will, I'm going to go there. I'm going to record some audio. And I'm pretty sure Roy can make some magic in here and like just throw some layers of that enthusiasm you're referring to.
One of the most wonderful things I've seen was specifically in Mexico City here. If you go to the stadium, right behind home plate, up near the top of that section, not at the bottom in the box seats, but higher up, there's a group of fans there, and they all dress up. They come together. There's like 8 of them. They all wear Hawaiian shirts. And they all come up with their own songs to sing when every individual batter comes up. So like batting next, Chava Periban, and they have a song about, Chava from Mexico and how he can't buy a hit. Or
how his mess is a hair.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And they're all, my Spanish is good enough that I could kind of get
that's why I need to record. That's what you're telling me.
Absolutely.
I need to go with those guys, bring Roy with the fancy audio equipment, and record those kids.
Yep.
Darian, it's been such a pleasure.
Chava,
thanks for passing by.
Thanks, man.
Saludcita, compa.
Cheers.
Joven Darian, it was such a grand pleasure to have you with us. I think that even beyond expanding my understanding of Mexico, you sparked my curiosity for traveling around Central America. I am ashamed of saying it, but I've never been to Guatemala, Nicaragua, and not even to the country that bears my own name, El Salvador. I need to change that pretty soon. All of you agave nerds that were brave enough to endure this baseball episode, I salute you. Roy Sierra is in charge of all sounds and music, and this episode was recorded inside his lovely studio in Mexico City. Nos vemos al ratito, jóvenes.